The sound of my heartbeat pulsed in my ears as I stood there, knife trembling in my hand, the shimmering blade reflecting the cold light of the chandelier above. The air was thick with the intoxicating scent of expensive perfume, his lover's signature fragrance, a concoction of jasmine and sandalwood that hung in the air like a deceptive promise. I could almost taste the bitterness in my throat, rising with memories of the life I'd built for him, brick by painstaking brick, only to watch it crumble like dry clay under the weight of betrayal. My gaze shifted to the table, where a crimson velvet cake awaited, its creamy frosting a stark contrast against the chaos brewing inside me. This wasn't just a cake. It was a symbol of everything that had been stolen from me. 25 years of love, trust, and vows exchanged beneath a sky full of stars. A tatty piece of paper lay next to it, an invitation that felt more like a dagger aimed straight at my heart. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration of my husband's latest achievement, a milestone I had sacrificed my own dreams for, and I had been preparing myself to shower him with the love and adoration he so desperately sought. But in that moment, standing in the opulence of our dining room, the once welcoming aroma of the food we'd shared across countless dinners had turned nauseating. The laughter that had echoed off these walls now ringing hollow. I could hear muffled voices behind closed doors, echoes of laughter and celebration. I should be the one there, basking in the compliments of his peers, the devoted wife standing proudly beside her husband in the glow of his success. Yet, here I stood, grasping the knife that might one day slice through the ties binding me to a man who no longer valued the sacrifices I had made. Flashbacks flooded my mind, vivid snapshots of the early days. I remembered the instant ramen noodles he used to eat while I savored the meager leftovers, each slurp reminding me of my modest sacrifice. I had spent sleepless nights calculating expenses, working doubles at the flower shop, while his dreams blossomed like the roses I so lovingly arranged. With every wilted bouquet turned into art, I had envisioned his success, his passion evolving into fortune, and put my own dreams on hold. "Oh, honey, you're so talented," I would tell him, my voice drenched in encouragement, though my heart whispered of the envy that clawed at my insides. The countless hours I spent nurturing his ambitions became the roots from which his success sprang, while I bloomed only in his shadow. But now, that sweet memory turned bittersweet, as the realization hit me like a harsh wind. He had cast aside my love, dismissing it for the youth and allure of a younger woman. The mask he wore, deceiving, charming, and at times utterly intoxicating, had slipped, falling to the ground with an echoed thud. I stood, no longer just a bystander in this charade. I had become the unwilling audience to my husband's most deceitful performance. A moment flashed through my mind, the exact moment the mask fell. I had been in the garden, pruning the roses, each snip a testament to my love for this man. My phone buzzed with a notification, an Instagram post that shook the ground beneath my feet. He stood, arm wrapped around a girl no older than 22, her hair cascading down her back like a waterfall of silk. They smiled, mouths wide in laughter, innocence radiating from their faces while the world spun into chaos around me. I dropped the shears, their metallic clang against the bricks swallowed by the earth below. And here I was tonight, amidst velvet and champagne, waist-deep in betrayal. The taste of disappointment lingered, the sweetness of the cake becoming more like bile growing in my throat. I blinked back tears as I clutched the knife tighter, my knuckles turning white. This was a lotus flower moment. I could either drown in the sorrow of my past, or rise anew in purpose. Footsteps approached, a familiar tread that sent a shiver down my spine. The door creaked open, and there he stood, radiant in his tailored suit that had cost more than my entire wardrobe. His face lit up, recognition dawning as he surveyed the lavish spread, blissfully unaware of the tempest brewing in my heart. "Hey, love, are you ready for tonight?" His voice, smooth and charming, wrapped around me like a serpent, each word a reminder of the trust I had blindly placed in him. "Ready for what?" I snapped, my voice carrying an edge, sharp like the knife in my hand. He stopped short, eyebrows arching in surprise. I took a breath, my heart racing as a mix of fear and anger surged through me. "Are we celebrating your new venture, or your new girlfriend?" The question hung thick in the air, palpable and bitter, a storm on the horizon ready to break. His expression faltered, the mask slipping further as his eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" I held up the phone, the image of him smiling with her forever etched into my mind. Time seemed to slow as the reality seeped through the walls he had built around his lies. "You think I wouldn't find out?" The words dripped with venom, cutting through the fog of our past as he scrambled for the right words. "Look, it's not what?" I interjected, my voice rising like the tide, ready to crash down. "Not what you thought it was. You chose to break me. You chose her over everything we've built together." His demeanor shifted, the facade of innocence consumed now by irritation. "You're overreacting, babe. This is just a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" I chuckled darkly, the sound echoing against the room's ornate decor. "You think I'm overreacting? You think throwing your love around like candy is something I should gloss over?" I could see him reevaluating his position, the words retreating like a wounded animal. "You're being paranoid," he attempted, but there was no reassurance in those words. There was only fear. Fear had slithered into my bones, coiling itself around my heart. I had sacrificed so much for him, my dreams, my ambition, and all that time I believed in his dream. He had been planting seeds of betrayal in the shadows. Yet, within the chaos of my heart, clarity emerged. I was no longer the victim in this warped game. I was the one holding the knife. I was the one who could shift the tides. "I'm done being your convenient wife. You presumed you could have both, a trophy at home and a plaything on the side. But tonight, you're going to watch the folly of your arrogance unfold around you." With a surge of adrenaline, I plunged the knife into the cake, the blade slicing through sugary layers like the facade of love we had lived. The icing splattered, a graphic display of what lay ahead. "If you want a war, I'll give you one. I'm not finished with you yet." The moment was electric, tension crackling like a live wire between us. Gone was the softness of my heart. In its place, I felt a fire igniting, burning away the betrayal, the hurt, and the shadows of my past. "You'll regret this," he warned, his bravado faltering as he stepped back, the fear now palpable in his eyes. "Regret?" I took a step closer, my heart racing in a blend of rage and triumph. "This is just the beginning." A spark flickered within, the realization that I would no longer be his victim. If he thought I was a mere footnote in his story, he was set to learn the power of the woman he underappreciated. Behind me, the cake lay in ruin, a reflection of shattered trust, a new beginning frosted with vengeance. If you want to see how this wife destroys the traitor, subscribe now. In the following days, a quiet storm brewed within the walls of our once beloved home. The emotional aftermath of my confrontation wrapped us in a tangled web of confusion and deceit, as I tiptoed around a man whose very being felt familiar yet alien, like a ghost haunting the remnants of our shared history. My heart was a smoldering ember that crackled with despair and determination. Yet, beneath the surface turmoil, a meticulous plan was beginning to blossom like the resilient roses I once tended to, now reborn with sharper thorns. As the sun cast its golden rays through the sheer curtains, illuminating the opulent living room, I crafted my facade with precision, every detail a calculated move in the game I suddenly found myself playing. My husband, still ensconced in his comfortable delusion, began to resume his daily patterns, oblivious to the creeping tide of vengeance. The sound of his laughter, once infectious, echoed through the house like an unsettling reminder of the man I had thought I knew, the man who could so easily betray me without a second thought. Each booming laugh was juxtaposed against the muffled thuds of my discontent, a reminder of the chasm that separated us now. Every day, I donned a mask of normalcy. It smelled like lavender, my favorite essential oil, clinging to the air around me as I stingingly perfumed the atmosphere, masking the bitterness of deceit. I was quiet and composed, cooking meals filled with the flavors of memories that now tasted like ashes in my mouth. The sizzling of garlic and fresh herbs filled the kitchen, but the overwhelming aroma soon lost its charm as I grasped the reality of my situation, inching closer to my purpose. "Are you even listening to me?" I heard him say one evening as I cut vegetables, the knife gliding effortlessly through the produce, a stark contrast to how I felt, hindered and trapped. His voice was a dull thud, an echo of his grandiosity. He was recounting some mundane work story, his words wrapping around me like an unnecessary blanket, weighted with insincerity. "Of course, dear," I managed to reply, though my mind was elsewhere. I was alternating between thoughts of dismally hopeful fantasies and vengeful ambitions. I projected a serene smile, my lips curving in a way that did not quite reach my hollow eyes. As the illusion of domesticity lingered, so did the gaslighting, his persistent attempts to paint my righteous feelings as a haze of paranoia. "You know it's not healthy to hold on to this anger, right? You're making it hard for us both," he would say, eyes narrowed slightly, as if a sense of wisdom sprouted from those browbeaten surfaces. It was infuriating. Every word dripped with condescension. He painted my ire as an irrational tempest, but I slowly began to learn the art of deception myself. I became a silent observer, collecting artifacts of betrayal beneath the pretense of marital devotion. I navigated our shared spaces with the meticulousness of a master thief, quietly trailing behind closed doors and peering over my shoulder, always anxious, forever alert. I became anxious in my decision to dive into his company paperwork, wading through electronic files and old receipts that told secrets longing to escape the confines of my desperate grasp. Tucking my hair neatly into a bun, I would sit at our kitchen table, folders laid out like a crime scene, the scent of burnt toast filling the air as my focus transformed the once comforting aroma into a signal. This was my battle station. I spent hours poring over bank statements, contracts, and invoices, watching the truth unfold in bold print, the ink revealing an underbelly of deceit and cruel exploitation. I felt the weight of the paper, a palpable representation of the years I had surrendered for his unwarranted triumph. It grasped at the edges of my resolve, whispering promises of justice. One afternoon, a familiar voice cut through the haze that enveloped me in the kitchen. "If you want to take him down, you have to know where to hit him where it hurts," my confidant and friend Jenna said, as she slipped into our already crowded chaos. She smelled of coffee and rain, a sharp contrast to my meticulous fortress, and I felt a surge of relief wash over me as she perched down beside my cluttered table. "What do you mean?" I asked, the tension in my voice cracking like glass. The last morsels of bitterness seemed to dribble down the sides of my heart, desperate for warmth and connection. "You're not the only one who's been hurt, you know. You just need the leverage to make him feel what he's done to you," she said softly, her eyes glinting with determination. Jenna was my beacon. She no longer saw me as a shadow of my former self. Instead, she was kindling a fire within me, that beautiful allure of resilience dancing vividly in her eyes. "I think I can get in touch with some of his business associates," she continued, her voice steady and calm, like the lingering warmth of a well-brewed cup. "If you can gather enough evidence, you might just have the upper hand." For the first time since my world had shattered, I felt a surge of hope. "What do you think I should do?" My pulse hammered in my chest, every beat resonating with adrenaline. "We'll gather information first," she said, her fingers brushing against the papers strewn about the table, "and find the cracks in his empire. That way, when you make your move, it'll be calculated and powerful." The strategy solidified in my mind. It sent like the earth after a storm, a sense of cleansing even in the chaos. A plan was forming in the recesses of my thoughts, reconnecting the pieces of my heartbreak into armor that would be worn bravely. I felt empowered, a silhouette shifting into the light of recognition, erasing the long-serving title of victim. Our meetings became evenings cloaked in secrecy, the heady fragrances of exotic teas and warm pastries nestling comfortably in the air, as Jenna and I devised game plans and pieced together the puzzle of my husband's treachery. She guided me to the digital realm, an abyss where endless emails and unguarded conversations lay undiscovered. On the screen of my laptop, numbers scrolled down like a furious waterfall. I collected timestamps, photo evidence, and chat histories that told the story of my husband's alleged infidelity, right down to an intricate web of deceit. Every emoticon a trigger for revelations, the interactions with his mistress woven carefully into the tapestry of his lies. I became agile in my methods, taking on the guise of a detective amidst the silence of our home, a phantom collecting subtle truths that clung to the shadows. Each time he dismissed my feelings as unhinged paranoia, I clutched the papers close like unshakable shields, and felt the weight of my resolve turn heavy with plans for the future. I felt adorned with a cloak of determination. Every silence became an assault of awareness, but it was the subtle touches that kept my heart beating, moments woven into our day-to-day lives that reinforced my resolve. The way he nonchalantly placed his hand on my shoulder while discussing plans for an upcoming dinner, the scent of his cologne wafting faintly through the air, a heady cocktail of betrayal seeping into every crevice of my heart. I continued exercising vigilance, moving through our world steadily, the edges of my night cloaked in shadows and thorns, each piece of evidence making its way into an ornate folder hidden beneath aged linens in our attic. It smelled of dust and nostalgia, a relic that carried echoes of laughter from better days gone by, now festering with the sins of the present. Preparation was becoming my preferred form of revenge. As I gathered those small relationships on the sidelines, the silent allies united under betrayal, I was learning to wield my newfound power, building an arsenal of facts that I planned to unleash at just the right moment. The ordinary noise of our home slowly swirled into a background score reminiscent of a ticking clock, each moment inching me closer to the resolution I craved. I stood at the precipice of my own strategic evolution when he sauntered home one evening, a triumphant smile plastered on his face as he regaled tales of his newest conquests at work. His voice danced with the charisma of a peacock basking in its own glory, yet every word dripped like honeyed poison, falling flat against my shrouded intentions. "How was your day?" he asked, as if nothing had changed, as if this was simply a routine follow-up we practiced with ease. I replied with the same sweetness that dripped from his tongue, knowing full well the storm that was brewing beneath. "Oh, it was lovely. You know, I got some great contacts today for my hobby project." He nodded, his attention already shifting to the television, flipping through channels with casual disinterest. But within me, that awareness coiled tighter, curling warmly around my heart. I was poised, wrapped in the essence of my intent like a bouquet sealed in satin, all glossy on the outside, but equipped with prickly thorns. Little did he know, I was not the frail woman he thought he had reduced me to. I was becoming a tempest, brimming with resolve, silently preparing for the thunderous awakening he would soon face, the crash of waves his arrogance could not anticipate. The moment of vulnerability was not far off, and when it arrived, each echo would leave a mark resonating with the echoes of all my preparations. But for now, I brewed my cauldron of secrets quietly, intoxicating the air with a fragrant blend of vengeance and justice. The war had begun. I was ready to find a way to reclaim what was rightfully mine. The ballroom was a spectacle of opulence, drenched in hues of gold and deep emerald. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls, each droplet of light refracted into rainbows that danced along the polished marble floors. The air was thick with the inviting scent of fresh blooms, a mixture of lilacs and gardenias, their intoxicating perfume winding through the crowd and mingling with the rich aroma of gourmet hors d'oeuvres elegantly presented on silver trays. Laughter and chatter buzzed like a lively orchestra, weaving a symphony of superficiality that grated against the jagged edges of my resolve. In that moment, standing at the entrance of the lavish venue, I felt like an intruder in my own life. I had orchestrated this celebration of my husband's achievements, an elaborate masquerade to disguise the savage reckoning I had crafted beneath the surface. As I scanned the room, my heartbeat matched the rhythm of the music. A steady drumbeat of nerves and anticipation thrummed in my chest. I was cloaked in a stunning crimson gown that hugged my curves, the satin fabric cool against my skin, as I took in the sight of the sniveling sycophants gathered to applaud his false accolades. "Cheers to the man of the hour!" The toast rang out, glasses clinking, leaving behind a backdrop of mirth that felt as if it were mocking my intention. He was charming the masses, his smile wide and perfectly orchestrated, while I lurked behind the scenes, my heart a hot flame eager to ignite the pyre of humiliation that would soon unfold. I caught his eye across the crowd. He stood tall, his tailored suit a perfect fit, exuding an air of confidence that fed off the applause. Little did he know, I was no longer the adoring wife. I was the architect of his downfall, the master of this elaborate trap. Beneath the guise of appreciation lay the bitter essence of revenge, and I was ready to unleash it. "Are you ready?" Jenna's whisper drifted into my ear like a cool breeze, her presence a grounding reminder amidst the storm swirling inside me. She stood beside me, her own attire a chic black, a perfect blend of elegance and cunning, mirroring the anticipation crackling within us both. "More than ready," I replied, the words tasting sweet and sharp on my tongue, a hint of the bite that would soon cut through the sweetness of the evening. I could feel an electricity in my fingertips, the culmination of weeks spent plotting leading to this pivotal night. As I positioned myself near the lavishly decorated podium, I could hear the ebb and flow of laughter bleeding seamlessly into the music. The room was a tapestry of vibrant colors and textures, small tables draped with silk tablecloths, shimmering with golden accents, vibrant bouquets of peonies bursting from crystal vases that caught the light, making everything appear ethereal. It was perfect, deceptively perfect. "Ladies and gentlemen," my husband's voice boomed over the microphone, a clip of laughter escaping him as he basked in the glow of admiration, relishing every moment. "Thank you all for joining us tonight. Your support means the world to me." Seizing the opportunity, I stepped into the spotlight, the stares of onlookers drawn toward me like moths to a flame. The cool air brushed against my skin as I adjusted the microphone. The room fell silent, the collective breath of the audience hanging in the air, ripe with expectation. "Everyone," I began, my heart racing in rhythm with the steady pulse of the music that underpinned the atmosphere. "Thank you for being here tonight to celebrate my husband's remarkable success." I let the words hang, wrapping around them like a warm embrace before unleashing the storm. However, tonight isn't just about his achievements. It's about revealing the shadows hidden behind the glimmering facade. Gasps rippled through the audience, a murmur sweeping like wildfire, igniting the tension that lingered just beneath the surface. I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to an intimate hush, holding their attention as tightly as a vice. You all know his charming demeanor, but behind closed doors, a different truth lurked, festering like an open wound. The stillness shifted, the room electric, as I glanced at my husband. His demeanor shifted, a flicker of confusion washed over his face, those well-polished features morphing into something akin to panic. I could feel the weight of the crowd's gaze, a collective breath held in anticipation, spiraling into a delicious tension that wrapped around the edges of my heart. With deliberate precision, I unveiled the evidence I had meticulously collected: images, texts, emails, each glimpse a brutal reminder of his indiscretions. The flickering projector behind me came to life, illuminating the sordid details of his betrayal across the wall. Gasps echoed. Some looked aghast. Others glanced at one another, buzzing like disturbed bees. "Here," I pointed, letting my voice rise with fervor as a series of photographs appeared, capturing him in intimate moments with his mistress. "This is him, my husband, your friend, living a double life." Each image sparked fresh disbelief. It was as if a spell had been cast, shattering the noir charm he had woven around their perceptions. Whispers surged through the crowd, swirling the currents of scandal that danced along the edges of elegance and propriety. As I continued, the emotions roiled within me. A mix of catharsis and vindication surged through my blood. I sacrificed my dreams for him, my love snuffed out beneath the weight of his betrayal, and he chose to indulge in the fleeting allure of youth. I continued with venom dripping from my tongue. But guess what? I bought his company. The revelation hit like a tempest. Color drained from his face, a wash of disbelief overshadowing the smug bear of a man he once was. "You what?" he croaked, the denial heavy in the air between us. "Yes," I declared, my voice unwavering now. "His empire is built on borrowed time and deceit, and I'm here to tell you that the reign of arrogance is over." His grip on the podium tightened, rage flashing through his eyes as the audience shifted uncomfortably, some whispering words of pity while others reveled in the joy of my triumph. "This is absurd! You're out of your mind!" he shouted, his voice strained, but I ignored him, finding strength in the unfolding chaos. "Do you think I would lie down while he masquerades around here as some sort of saint?" I roared, my eyes locking onto mine with a ferocity that sizzled. "I've been the dutiful wife, the sacrifice, the unsung hero while he cavorted with my betrayal. But now, it's my turn." The atmosphere brimmed with disbelief, a tension thick enough to slash through, each whisper rippling through the audience like a rising tide. I had transformed from voiceless victim to raging phoenix. The spectators now bore witness to the unraveling tapestry of deceit, hooks dangling as I reeled them in one by one. "Would you have waited this long?" I posed to the room, turning my gaze to the sea of faces. "To reveal someone who has squandered your trust? I'm standing here to reclaim everything that was lost." The tide of murmurings rose, fueled by sympathy for a woman scorned, and astonishment at the audacity of his betrayal. The humiliation washed over him, his once chiseled face now a mask of disbelief, desperation clawing at the edges as he struggled to piece together the fraying remnants of his public image. My pulse quickened with the intoxicating rush of victory as I gleaned the energy in the room. My husband's treachery exposed, every whispered fragment a bead in the tapestry of retaliation I had devised. The gleeful anticipation of his downfall surged through me like an electric current. No longer was I the woman who cowered in the shadows. I was the storm on the horizon, the reckoning he could never see coming. As the speech drew to a close, I took one last glance at my husband, the realization sinking in that his web of lies had dissolved like sugar in water, leaving bitterness in its wake. I savored the moment, each heartbeat a fierce drum of triumph. This was my reclamation. "Thank you all for your support of me," I finished, raising my glass to the crowd, and the cheers rang out like a chorus of victory, drowning out the last lingering notes of his shattered confidence. "And to new beginnings!" A cascade of applause erupted, puncturing the air. Every clap echoed the strength of a woman rising from the ashes. I stepped down from the podium, cleansed of the burdens I had carried for far too long. The storm had arrived, and in the wake of its fury, I stood firm, unyielding, a testament to the resilience of a woman betrayed, but not broken. The shimmering dawn broke through the clouds like a triumphant resurgence, casting a golden hue upon the remnants of the extravagant ballroom where my life had turned upside down. It felt like a cinematic reveal, the colors of the morning painting the scene as I emerged from the murky fog of betrayal and into the resplendent light of freedom. 6 months had passed since that catastrophic evening of revelations, where I reclaimed my identity, cast aside the shackles of deceit, and transformed the ashes of my tumultuous past into a phoenix of opulence and strength. As I stood on the balcony of my new office, the brisk morning air whipped through my hair, carrying with it the sweet scent of blossoming flowers from the meticulously tended garden I had painstakingly curated, each petal a testament to my resilience. The echoes of laughter from the nearby park wafted in on the summer breeze, mingling with the sound of distant traffic, churning in harmony as life blossomed anew. The office, my office, was a grand spectacle, each detail embodying the metamorphosis I had undergone. High ceilings adorned with intricate moldings reflected the soft light filtering in through expansive floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the polished mahogany desk that became the heart of my newfound empire. Rich, earthy tones enveloped the space, creating a sanctuary that felt like an embrace after years of emotional desert. The gentle hum of the city beyond infused my surroundings with energy, a constant reminder of the life I had reclaimed and the vision I was painstakingly sculpting. The morning air was dappled with the aroma of fresh coffee, a rich, velvety flavor that ignited my senses and danced on my palate as I glanced at the paper sitting innocuously on my desk. A list of my husband's former colleagues, each name a reminder of the monumental shift in power dynamics, was sprawled before me like prey laid out for the hunt. In this world of finance, the men I had once considered allies now viewed me through the lens of jealousy and apprehension, my ascent threatening the state of affairs they had grown comfortable in, while my husband's reputation crumbled like delicate silk in a brush fire. 6 months later, and the consequences of his treachery had not eluded him. His once charismatic demeanor corrupted by the poison of his choices. The luxurious life he had relished was slipping from his grasp like grains of sand, his ethereal charm fading into the shadows of past glory. He'd lost everything, his foundation slowly eroding under the weight of his betrayal, and I couldn't help but savor the taste of that poetic justice. With newfound purpose, I had appointed a team of experts to navigate the complex world of business, men and women with their fervor unmarred by guilt, absolutely skilled at dismantling the threads of deceit that bound my husband's operation. My grip on the wheel of my future tightened with each passing day, as I watched lucrative deals crystallize into prospects that would allow me to flourish. I unleashed a storm upon the corporate space, deftly leveraging the connections I made while he played house half-heartedly. In the months that followed my rise, whispers of his downfall infiltrated the industry. I had taken pleasure in watching as his friends began to distance themselves, meandering in an uncharacteristic fashion around the topic of my new ownership. His closest allies had grown wary, scheming, plotting, and betraying him, lining their pockets while dredging his name through mud. Power had shifted. I was the puppet master, wielding strings they never saw coming. His financial situation had dwindled to a state I found both humorous and vindicating. Reports bounced from one desk to another, detailing the slow unraveling of his assets. Businesses reclaimed, revenue diluted, and reputation toxic. All the while my ascendance took form, ballooning into a vision he could never have contemplated amid his arrogance. Resilience was my shield, salvation, my sword. One day, as I sat poised over a folder of market projections, my phone lit up with an incoming call, an urgent tone of distraction that interrupted my focused bubble. It was Jenna, her voice a flurry of excitement as she spoke. "You won't believe this. I just heard that your ex-husband is on the verge of bankruptcy." A chuckle slipped from my lips, a smooth, satisfied sound. "Isn't that a little poetic?" I replied, a warmth filling my chest at the prospect. Karma has quite the sense of humor, doesn't it? In that moment, I envisioned him, once immaculately polished, now hunched against the weight of his failures, a specter of his former self. The reality of losing his high-rise Manhattan penthouse dissolved by the reality of his debts, mirrored in the phrases that echoed through my relatively tranquil world. Alone on the bustling streets of New York, with only the ghosts of his past accolades as company, I found solace in the knowledge of his impending downfall. Weeks passed, and the whispers grew louder. "Did you hear? He's taken on a job as a store manager at a retail chain. Can you believe that?" Jenna's voice was rife with zeal, and I savored the delicious revelation of his new reality, far removed from the lifestyle he had enjoyed while ensnaring younger women in his web of petty lies. I could picture the scene clearly. Him, clad in a cheap polo shirt instead of tailored suits, managing disgruntled employees while attempting to save face in a world where he no longer held the power. The unsettling clang of the cash register echoing through the aisles, a discordant reminder of the life that had spiraled into chaos. I imagined the smell of worn-out products filling the small space, and it ignited an unending sense of glee that filled my heart with warmth. As I reveled in my burgeoning success, my portfolio blooming against the fabric of his failure, rumors swirled of the youthful mistress who had once been the gleaming jewel he had flaunted. Their connection, a thin veil of passionate fervor, had dissolved under the weight of reality, like spun candy melting away in a summer sun. She was nowhere to be found in his realm of despair. Word reached me like sweet nectar, telling the tale of her departure once the lights began to dim, her hungry eyes fixated on the newest affluent prey. It echoed the thread of betrayal coursing through their love. It was a narrative I found all too familiar. As each day filled my plate with deliverables and accomplishments, I could almost hear the strings of fate tightening around my ex-husband, a bemused audience tossing roses at my success while his world came undone. Within me, the past and present collided into a whirlwind of victory. I had risen from the embers, burgeoning into the woman I was always meant to be, brimming with unparalleled strength and vibrancy. One day, I stood before the mirror, ignoring the faint creases of age that the relentless march of time etched into existence, yet unable to see the layers of beauty that emerged through my trials. I had redesigned myself, choosing to adorn my curves with the confidence I had once surrendered. With a flick of my hair and a bright smile painted across my lips, I embodied an empowered woman, a phoenix rising from the depths of sorrow, a beacon of hope for others navigating similar struggles. The world around me had transformed. I now relished the sweet scent of expensive perfume and embraced silk against my skin, a genre of indulgence I had missed, but was now coloring every experience. I poured my energy into the foundation of a charity dedicated to uplifting women who had lost their way due to betrayal and deceit. We would empower each other like a sisterhood, forged in the fires of strength, equally practical and potent. My life was a free fall of color against the backdrop of his muted gray, swirling en masse into a dance of liberation. A world filled with laughter, fragrance, soccer games in the park, and joy echoing through every alley. I was creating a legacy of my own, securing freedom through the laughter of children and the embrace of comrades. But as I ventured into this bewitching realm of new beginnings, I often found myself overlooking a jagged edge, the awareness that the electricity of his lingering presence still played upon my skin like a faint echo. He had once owned the throne in my story, but now, as the final chords of betrayal began playing their closing notes, I wondered how long it would take for him to realize that the narrative had shifted irreparably. Here I stood, thriving among the fragrance of ripe opportunities, alone and yet overflowing with a renewed sense of purpose, the woman who had bought a betraying prince's castle and transformed it into her own kingdom, where gallantry thrived and empathy reigned. I was a heartbeat away from crafting an even more riveting and audacious tale of transformation and redemption. So what happens when the tables turn, and the snake that once basked in the sun comes crawling back, mortified, yet hopeful for forgiveness? The stage was set for the next chapter, a story yet untold, an adventure of unforeseen twists that would herald yet another tide of chaos. Brace yourself for the next intriguing saga, a tale of love, betrayal, and the unexpected person who becomes a part of my life again.